Joining us to look at the task before the new ministers is Dr. Goke Adegoroye, a retired Federal Permanent Secretary and Pioneer Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on Newsnight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now that the ministers have their portfolios, let's look at their workings. How can they work together? How can they synergize to deliver the goods to the people?
First, the ministers have their mandates. And as soon as they are sworn in, the first thing they're going to get is a letter of appointment to which is attached also their responsibilities based on their mandates. And they're going to be received by the chief administrative officer in the ministry, the permanent secretaries, who are also there to receive them, to be able to tell them, what to do. And of course, they too will have been going through briefs that will set them, to put them in the right frame of mind and getting them ready for that. So they are assigned to that. That's number two, is the fact that the president himself, who has appointed them, will have had one-on-one discussion with them. And they know his focus, they know his intention. And when you look at this cabinet, you can almost tell the thinking of the president. In Nigeria's history since 1999, this is the first time that you're actually seeing the political man at play in the way he has been able to bring back and bring his team together. You could see, as many people have seen, you see diversity, you will see inclusiveness, you will also see the youth challenge that is also being addressed, but more importantly also is the fact that you can see the generality of political stability that is already unfolding in those kind of cabinets. So putting them together and getting them to do his focus, which is more driven towards economy, towards revenue generation, you can tell, towards also new ideas in the way of the 21st century. So these are some of the things that you will be seeing. But having said that, the synergy that you are talking about, we are hoping that you'll be able to go further to let that synergy come to play. For example, there are two ministers there that are called coordinating ministers. You want to be able to see what is going to drive the coordination. In my book, the last time, Restoring Good Governance in Nigeria, chapter 13, I talk largely about all of this, how to, what are the factors that dictate creation of ministry, the number of ministry and things like that. So if you are coordinating, which are those ministries you are coordinating? The last time we had that word was during Ngozi Iweala. And I also did an analysis here that it wasn't really the right way. Because to have the right way, you must also have a bureaucracy that will support the coordination. So that at least you are seeing those things coming together. But beyond that, why don't you really aggregate them? Because if you're using coordination, that's something that is borrowed from Indonesia. It's in Indonesia that you have a number of ministries who are put together, and you have somebody who's coordinating in those ones. So maybe these are some of the things I want to say. But again, there are still certain gaps that we would have liked featured. Like
what are the gaps?
For example, I happen to be the publicity secretary of the Council of Retired Federal Permanent Secretaries and Head of Service. And our council also put together a team under my chairmanship to advise government about, the structure, about the issues as it relates to the public service under our chairman, Yayale Ahmed. And part of the things we identify, for example, is the issue of establishment that seems to have really, gone comatose. And that's why you are having some of the issues that you are having right now, manpower development and so on. What about also the issue of pension? We would have liked that one also comes to focus. Our own structure we're bringing into place is also mentioned some of that. But beyond that also is that in the same way that he's been able to bring some modernity into play in the naming of some of those ministries, marine and blue economy. I was also expecting personally that the traditional women affairs ministry should have now included, family affairs. And When you look at the structure also, you can see that Ministry of Niger Delta appears missing.
Yeah, missing. No, okay, we'll come back to that. Hold your thought on that. But let's take a quick look at some of the portfolios. Minister of Power now, Adegoroye who was the CBN Deputy Governor of Operations. How do you see him bringing his experience in that office to bear in reforming the power sector, in bringing about a visible change, visible impact?
First, if what we have been reading in the news in the last 1 week is the truth, we will know that that looks like a portfolio that just fell on the lap of Adegoroye.
Why would you say so?
Because what has been in the news is that Nasiru El-Rufai was coming in to take energy, and that would have included power. He himself has spoken about power and energy and gas and so on. So maybe because he's not there, then the focus now needs to really change a little bit. And the Nasiru case is a loss to the nation, to my own mind. I work with him and I know, very capable person, as many people will also identify. But that's the savagery of politics. Now that Adegoroye is there, what some of us are thinking is that the president is probably focusing on how to harness some kind of investment in that kind of sector. If the investment can be harnessed, and then you also still have the technical people driving it, you will still be getting to some that way, because what Nasiru was supposed to do, I'm sure he must have developed some blueprints that he will have made available to the president. And it will now be the lot of Adegoroye to try and implement that. So that's the way I see it. I don't see him not being capable to handle it. The technical people will help to support. He will be able to drive the investment that will drive the sector.
Former Ebonyi State Governor, Minister of Works, David Umahi. Now, David Umahi, with his exposure as a former governor, what do you see him bringing on board in the Minister of Works with what Fashola did in his time as a former governor as well?
He's surely a friend of Fashola, and I also understand that he's an engineer. So it shouldn't be so strange to him.
Yes, he is.
It should not be so strange, to him to be able to, to be able to drive that ministry. If anything at all, he's going to see the Fashola's performance as a challenge, and if there are gaps in the Fashola one, that he'll be able to do. I don't have too much against the fact that you have governors that are coming in, as long as those governors are able to realize as soon as possible that they are not His Excellency anymore with all the absolute power that they wield. So they need to come to the level of minister. Some of us have worked with those kind of governors before, and their attitude, we were the ones to be able to really bring them down to earth. So, but this is somebody that everybody sees as somebody who is very, forthright and humble and not egregious. So we expect that he'll be able to carry on the same way that Fashola has been doing that. And especially in the Nigerian politics way, where you are always thinking about what comes to your own area. The Southeast now should not complain, because they have one of their own who may be able to do the East-West Road and all those ones that have been there for years.
Doctor, I won't let you go without bringing in this, this popular bone of contention. 45 ministers, the largest cabinet ever in Nigeria's history, and we're still clamoring for a reduction in the cost of governance. Where do we go from here?
Let me put it this way. There's a professor, Aaron Livingston, that says that statistics are like bikinis. What they reveal is suggestive. What they conceal is vital. When we're talking about cost of governance, we usually draw the axe to the payments to ministers, to aides, to so on. But when you look at the corruption that is taking place in Nigeria, it's not in those sectors. It's from the hidden budgets that are big, is where you are seeing the massive corruption that is going on. So the president will have to do a lot to get people who are credible, who have integrity, to be able to monitor those areas. That's number one. Number two, as for these people, let me also remind you, the last time you brought me here about a week ago, we were talking about Federal Character Commission.
Right.
Do you realize that Character Commission has 37 commissioners? The salaries of commissioners is just a shade below that of ministers. And what are they doing? So these people, you should focus at what they are going to actually, the productivity they're going to bring in. Now they have portfolios, 35 ministries, 10 ministers of state. There are portfolios that are going to be driven, and if those portfolios are driven, they're going to get a lot. For example, I was permanent secretary at one time in culture, ministry, and so on. And succeeding permanent secretaries in culture have been coming to me to complain about the fact that culture has not been given a pride of place and tourism, because the ministers have been taking most of the funds for information. Now he's been able to bring culture out, he's been able to bring tourism out. Can you see the multiplier effect when people who are in the creative industry now have a ministry of their own that they can go into? But when you really talk about that, there's also the waiting in the cabinet. You see some ministries that have minister of state, and you are looking at some big ministries that do not have. Finance doesn't have minister of state. Maybe it's going to come from those people who are still there. Foreign affairs too, but you have still development. You have those smaller ministries like that, and you're beginning to wonder what's really playing out. So these are some of the things that have to be addressed.
Dr. Goke Adegoroye, time will not permit us to ask. I was going to mention Lola Adejon on tourism, but we don't have the luxury of time. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this night. You are the Pioneer Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. We shall have you again sometime soon. Thank you for joining us this evening.